Chapter 7. Violet. Violet slammed the door behind her, making sure it was locked. Who was that? Dash asked from the top of the stairs. What did she want? Violet peered through the blinds and watched Mirage walk to a small yellow sports car parked at the curb. Mirage reached into her bag, pulled out cheap cat's eye black sunglasses, and put them on before getting in the car and driving away. Violet, Dash badgered. Who was that? Does she really know Mom and Dad? Where are they? Why did she want us to go with her? Violet massaged her temples the way she saw her mom do when Dash was blazing through a list of questions that he demanded answers for. The truth was, she didn't have any. All she knew was Mirage's card was in her dad's office, so he clearly knew her. But if her parents wanted them to go with the woman, they would have sent word, wouldn't they? Fine, call your parents, check me out, but when you realize I'm right, if you're still alive, call me. Violet shuddered, thinking of Mirage's words. Mom and Dad are fine, she told herself. They probably just lost track of time. She would try Lucius, and if that failed, she'd use the comm links. Bring Jack downstairs and feed him breakfast, Violet told Dash. I'll explain everything in a minute. Where are you going? Violet? Violet? Dash called, but she ignored him and hurried down the hall to her dad's office again. She heard Dash audibly groan. Violet went straight to the rotary phone. She knew Lucius's number by heart. Mom had made her memorize it when they'd moved to Metroville, since he and Honey were the only friends they had nearby. Her fingers were shaky as she dialed the numbers on the rotary wheel and watched the circles spring back. She knew it was early on a Sunday to be calling, but she had no choice. The phone rang 2, 3 times, then 4. Violet's fingers curled tighter around the phone receiver. Even if Lucius was asleep, he would have heard the phone by the 6th ring, wouldn't he? Or the 7th? Honey, his wife, would have picked up by the 8th. Or the 9th. The phone continued to ring 10, then 11 times before Violet finally hung up. Where were they? A dark thought occurred to her. Could Mastermind have got to Lucius too? She tried to calm down. She needed to calm down. First, she would try the comms link. Violet scanned the room, looking for it. She spotted it next to the pencil holder full of Mr. Incredible pencils. The comm link looked like a torch with a giant red button on it. One press of the red button and it would connect her with her parents, who carried an identical one on them at all times. Her dad had shown her how to use one before she ever even learned how to write her own name. Violet stared at the comm link for a moment, suddenly paralyzed with fear. What if her parents didn't answer? Violet! Dash yelled again. This time she heard Jack babbling. What's going on? Give me a minute, Violet shouted back. And don't come in here this time. Mom and Dad are fine, she told herself again. Mom will answer. Violet took the comms link and held it firmly in her hand for a moment before she clicked the switch to turn it on. She closed her eyes and pressed the red button. Mom, can you hear me? It's Violet. She let go of the button and waited for a response. All she heard was static. She tried to calm her nerves. Her parents could be busy, or maybe they didn't hear her. Violet pressed the button again. Mom? Dad? Are you there? It's Violet. I need to talk to you right away. Violet let go of the button and listened to static come over the line again. She waited longer this time. Static flooded her ears and her fingers grew sweaty around the device as she imagined the worst. Could Mastermind really be back and after her family? No, her parents would have warned them. They certainly weren't working for a secret branch of the government, were they? Even if something were wrong, they would have got word to someone that they were in trouble, right? Like Lucius, who also wasn't answering? Violet's stomach tightened. If Lucius were in trouble too, would they have resorted to sending a complete stranger to warn their kids they were in danger? Yes, a small voice in her head said, if they had no other option. Her heart pounded faster. What if Mirage had been telling the truth and she just put her family in more danger? Mom? Violet tried the comm links again. This is an emergency. Please answer. Mom? I need you to answer right away. Mom? All she heard was more static. Don't panic, she told herself. Mom and Dad are supers. They can handle anything. And they had. Her dad once fought off a giant great white shark. Violet? Dash pushed open the door to the office, carrying Jack Jack in his arms. The baby screamed in delight when he saw her, reaching his sticky hands out. In a trance, Violet took him, still wondering what her next move was. Did you talk to Mom? Or Dad? Violet dug into her pocket for the note again and stared at it, willing to tell her something new. But all that was written on it was Jack Jack's schedule. Nothing about how to find her in an emergency. And this was an emergency. Violet, what's going on? Violet could feel her patience thinning. Dash, I'm trying to reach Mom, okay? And Lucius, no one is answering. She knew her voice was strained. Then maybe you should call that lady, Dash suggested, moving around the office, again picking up various things he wasn't supposed to touch, like a box with a handwritten message on the side that said, thought you'd get a kick out of what I found in storage, Lou. Violet was too worried to stop Dash from going through it. Yeah, Violet said absent-mindedly as Dash lifted the box's lid. Maybe she's at the door again, Dash suggested. Someone's been banging for the last 2 minutes. Violet froze. Someone's at the door? She stopped and listened. Someone was pounding. Could it be Mastermind? Did supervillains make house calls? She reached in her pocket again, pulling out Mirage's number. Should she call it? Or was she just being paranoid? Maybe it was a delivery for her mom. Her mom was expecting, and she was blowing this whole thing out of proportion. The knocking grew louder. Violet put Jack Jack on the floor and looked at Dash. Stay here and keep the door locked until I tell you to open it. Lock myself in Dad's office? Dash couldn't help but grin. Not a problem. Violet went to the door. Stay quiet. But she heard Dash as she shut the door behind her and walked swiftly to the front of the house, peeking through the nearest window to see who was there. It was 2 men wearing tuxedos. They looked like they were headed to a wedding or delivering flowers. Not like supervillain minions who would try to kidnap her and her brothers. Violet resisted the urge to laugh. She was driving herself mad. Mastermind was not after them. They knocked again, and despite all the warnings Mirage had given, Violet felt confident opening the door. I think you have the wrong house, she said, feeling relieved. Both men were wearing black sunglasses and standing at attention, their hands folded in front of them, their expressions serious. One was bald, the other had short black hair. Is this the Parr residence? The man on the left asked, so it wasn't the wrong house. Violet tensed. Can I help you? Slowly she reached for the door again, preparing to shut it on their fingers if she had to. Her black hair fell in front of her one eye, shielding her from seeing them fully. She tried to control her breathing. We're looking for the Parr children, the second man said. Warning signs went off in her head. Mastermind's minions. Her gut told her she and her brothers were in danger. Violet looked out at the street, frantically searching for Mirage's car, but it was gone. It was only then that she realized things were unusually quiet. When the street had been bustling a few minutes earlier, no one was playing ball out front. Her neighbor and his lawnmower had disappeared. Not a single car drove by. She bit the inside of her cheek. She needed to get her brothers out of the house. I don't know the Parrs. You definitely have the wrong house. Sorry. Violet tried to shut the door. The bald guy grabbed the frame and swung the door open again. I don't think we do, Violet. He stepped forwards, grabbing her wrist. You need to come with me. She heard Mirage's voice in her head. Run. Let go of me, Violet shouted. The man held firm, and Violet did a move her dad had taught her. With her free hand, she reached for the wrist he was holding and twisted her body into him, forcing him to let go. Then she stomped as hard as she could on his foot. The man groaned in response. We need backup. the other man said into the gadget on his wrist and reached for her. Violet did the opposite, slamming the front door and running down the hall to the office, realizing too late she hadn't locked the door behind her. "Dash," she said, "open the door." Turning around, she saw the two men right behind her. "Stop yelling," Dash said, opening the door. "Who was at the—" "Uh-oh," Dash said, seeing the men. "It's the super kids. Grab them." One of the guys shouted. Violet slid into the room. "Close the door! Close the door!" But it was too late. Something whizzed past her head, and Violet looked down. The intruders had tossed small metal balls into the room. They exploded, a heavy, dark smoke filling the room. Smoke bombs. Violet spun around, coughing. She couldn't see her hand in front of her face. "Dash, where are you? Where's Jack?" "Violet!" She heard her brother call, even though she couldn't see him. She heard Jack start to cry, and Dash coughing too. "Where are you?" She groped for the door, unsure if she should still try to close it or if she was locking them all inside. She felt someone grab her waist. She screamed, "Got one!" One of the men shouted as Violet struggled to get out of his grip. "Spread out! There are two more supers! Let go! Dash! Grab Jack! Run!" she cried, scratching at the man's hand in desperation. She looked around wildly, hearing people shouting and the commands of others entering the house. They were outnumbered. "Use a force field!" Dash shouted from somewhere in the room as things began to crash. "A force field! Yes!" Violet felt her fingers spark for a second, but she was so nervous they immediately fizzled out. She tried again, struggling harder, backing up and knocking whoever was holding her into a bookshelf. She heard her dad's trophies go tumbling. Violet couldn't focus. Her attention was too scattered on Jack, on Dash, on the yelling, and she could barely move her hands. She couldn't summon her powers on command. The man began to drag her out of the room, and her panic took hold. Mastermind had her parents, and soon would have her and her brothers, and she couldn't even use her stupid powers to get out of this. "Let my sister go!" Violet looked up. The smoke had cleared enough that she could see Dash shoot something into the air. A heavy stream of fire flew out of whatever he was using, igniting the ceiling. Dash screamed. Jack squealed like it was a show. Violet and the man holding her went slack at the sight. "What is that?" Violet cried, getting loose and running to her brother as the fire quickly spread across the ceiling, expanding in seconds like a sprinkler fanning out on a lawn. Dash's eyes widened as he glanced at the megaphone-shaped device in his hands. This one was red, not blue. "I thought it was a freeze ray!" "Fire!" one of the men cried, running for the door as a bookcase became engulfed in flames. "Someone call Mastermind! We need to abort!" Violet swept up Jack from the floor with one hand and with her free arm reached for Dash. "The house is on fire! We have to go!" "We can put it out, right?" Dash said as Violet searched for a path to exit. There were men in tuxedos everywhere. She turned. Some shouting for a fire extinguisher, others on their wrist gadgets calling Mastermind for help. "There they are!" one of Mastermind's goons yelled, racing towards her again. If they could make it down the hall to the garage, they might have a chance. And to do that, she'd need her powers. She had to try. She let go of Dash's hand, passing him the baby, and her hands flew out in front of her as she focused on the goons and her anger. Her whole body seemingly became electrified before a large force field shot from her hands, and the men in the hallway went flying backwards. Violet's mouth opened in surprise. Then she quickly made another force field around the three of them, like a protective bubble. "How are you doing that?" Dash shouted as Jack giggled with delight. "I don't know, and I don't know how long I can hold it either." Every part of her body was pulsing as she felt the energy crackling through her. "We need to back out of the garage," she said as the ceiling in the hallway caught fire too, smoke filling the room faster. "Then move! You're too slow!" Dash complained. He was right. She began backing up, but she wasn't quick enough. What if the force field fizzled? What if the fire made their back exit impossible? Dash reached for something on the floor in their protective shield and held it up. It was a skateboard. "Jump on," he said. Violet stared at the board for a moment before realization took hold. "Dash, I could kiss you." "Gross! Don't!" Dash dropped the skateboard on the ground, and Violet hopped on. Dash couldn't both push them and hold Jack. Violet had no choice but to drop the force field and grab the baby. Dash held on to the back of her shirt. "The shield is down. Grab them!" the goons shouted. Dash's feet turned, and the skateboard started to move. The skateboard was going so fast the wheels were starting to smoke. Jack screamed with delight as the three kids rocketed down the hallway, slammed through the door into the garage, and rushed down the driveway. In seconds, they were down the street, and Mastermind's men couldn't keep up. When Violet looked back, she felt ill. Their house was engulfed in flames. The sounds of sirens whirred in the distance. Her stomach twisted and turned, but there was nothing she could do. Hopefully, the firefighters would put the fire out in time. The important thing was that she and her brothers were safe. "Can I stop now?" Dash shouted as they whipped around the corner of the street. "No," Violet said instinctively. They had to get somewhere far away. Somewhere safe. But where? Lucius wasn't answering the phone. Her parents might be captured. Their house was on fire. Violet bit the inside of her lip. She knew she only had one choice. "Get us to the back door of the supermarket, but slow down before this parking lot," she shouted. Dash slowed as they approached the shopping area, and Violet handed him the baby, who was squealing like he'd just spent an hour on their garden swing. "We're alive and fight to fight another day," Dash cheered. "How can you be excited?" Violet asked, sounding moody but not caring. "We almost died back there, all because of our stupid powers." "Who were those guys?" Dash asked. He didn't even sound out of breath. "Violet, shh." Violet pulled the crisp white business card from her pocket, slotted a coin in the payphone, and dialed. Someone answered on the first ring. "Violet?" "You were right," Violet whispered. "Tell me where you are," Mirage said without hesitation. "I'll be there. I'll be right there."